Hey everyone, Nvidia stock was down 7% today on the back of comments from both Donald Trump and the Biden administration that brought down broader semiconductor stocks overall. Stocks like ASML, Taiwan Semiconductor, AMD were all down, as well as Nvidia. So I'll review the comments made by Donald Trump and the change in policy or potential change in policy from the Biden administration and why that's causing Nvidia's stock price to fall. And then I'll answer whether or not this is a buying opportunity or a time to take profits in Nvidia stock. So there's a lot to cover. Let's get right into it. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now. Let's start with the comments from Donald Trump, who said that Taiwan should pay the U.S. for its defense as it does not give the country anything, the Republican presidential candidate told Bloomberg Businessweek, and that sent the stock price of TSMC lower on Wednesday. Now, TSMC and Nvidia are connected because Nvidia gets nearly all of its supply from Taiwan Semiconductor manufacturing. So if something's going to devastate Taiwan Semiconductor, it's going to hurt Nvidia as well. And so the news that sent Taiwan Semiconductor stock down also brought down Nvidia stock. But you might be wondering why this news is connected to TSMC and Nvidia. Well, and I'm no political expert, I just look at how these political actions or rhetoric could impact stocks and business, because especially when you deal with international companies like Taiwan Semiconductor and Nvidia, politics plays an important role because of decisions like this. Export controls, import controls, tariffs, quotas, and other factors have big implications for business. And what this suggests is if the U.S. is not going to defend Taiwan as robustly as they have been, as the Biden administration has been signaling, then that could encourage China to take more aggressive action against Taiwan, which would then put Taiwan chip manufacturer TSMC under huge pressure. It might not be able to manufacture as it's used to. The supply constraints will increase, which would put Nvidia in a bind because that's its primary supplier. Now, it could diversify away, but that would take some time and it's still going to be hurt. So underlying these difficulties are that Taiwan, which China views as its own territory, has complained of repeated Chinese military activity over the past 4 years, as Beijing seeks to pressure the democratically governed island, which rejects China's sovereignty claims. So they have this battle between each other, Taiwan and China, and the U.S. is sort of in the middle of it because the U.S. is defending Taiwan or claiming that it will defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion or a Chinese military action. So those factors put Taiwan Semiconductor manufacturing in the middle of all of this, and Nvidia, as a result, in the middle as well. So that's why these comments from Donald Trump raised the risks of this happening, raised the risks of China taking aggressive military action, because if China feels the U.S. is not as robust in Taiwan's defense, it may see that as an opportunity to take action. And so if it does take action, then that's a huge negative for the entire semiconductor industry, including Nvidia and Taiwan Semiconductor. And so as a result, it's understandable that Nvidia's stock price would decline on the back of this announcement, on the back of this comment, because it increases the probability of the worst case scenario. So that being said, Nvidia is a major supplier of chips and computing systems for AI. They said that they feel perfectly safe about relying so much on Taiwan for manufacturing. The CEO, Jensen Huang, said in the beginning of June. So some companies have expressed concerns about the potential risks to business given heightened military threats by China against Taiwan, but Nvidia feels safe. Nvidia still feels safe. But even though Nvidia feels safe, they're still taking action to diversify away from this big risk. They understand it's a risk, and they are taking action to diversify away. And one thing that Nvidia is interested in is using Intel for manufacturing its chips. The CEO Jensen Huang said around March 23rd. They're interested in using their foundries. We're very interested in exploring it, Jensen Huang said. But he added that the foundry discussions take a long time as it's about integrating supply chains. And so the US has been incentivizing companies like Intel and Taiwan Semiconductor and Samsung and Micron and other semiconductor companies to increase manufacturing capacity in the US. And many of the companies, including Intel and Taiwan Semiconductor, have been taking advantage of those incentives. And so they're investing in these manufacturing facilities in the US. So that diversification is happening. It's been happening for some time now. And so Nvidia understands this risk, and they have been investing to try and keep this risk under control. So on top of the comments from Donald Trump, we had some reports from Bloomberg about the Biden administration considering implementing a more severe curb involving controls on foreign manufactured products that use even the smallest amount of American technology. Current restrictions have already impacted US-based companies' ability to sell to China. Nvidia specifically, their sales to China decreased as a percentage of total data center revenue from 19% in 2023 to just 14% in 2024. So the US has imposed already several restrictions on sales to China of its technology, and if the Biden administration implements even more severe curbs, then that's an escalation in this tit for tat that's going on between the US and China and Taiwan. So this would not help the case. This would not help decrease tension among the countries vying for semiconductor superiority, as the importance of artificial intelligence is really increasing to a whole nother level. Already, export controls imposed by the Netherlands, ASML's home country, bars the company from selling its most advanced technology to Chinese companies. That means the shipments there consist of older generations of chip-making equipment. Now, when we're talking about the artificial intelligence supply chain, I already highlighted that TSMC is the supplier for Nvidia. Nvidia outsources its manufacturing to TSMC. TSMC, meanwhile, uses ASML's technology for manufacturing, and ASML has the most cutting-edge technology for manufacturing semiconductor chips. And so you can think about that supply chain. Nvidia goes to TSMC, TSMC goes to ASML. And so this restriction goes all the way back through the supply chain. And so Washington, which wants to limit Beijing's access to chip technology that could be used by its military, still appears unhappy. And Bloomberg reported early Wednesday that the US wants the Netherlands and Japan, where ASML competitor Tokyo Electron is based, to tighten their export controls. In other words, the Biden administration wants to put more pressure on its allies in Japan and the Netherlands to place more restrictions on exports of these technologies. And so that's creating even more pressure, increasing risks even further that this situation could escalate into something much worse. And so that's why you're seeing Nvidia's stock price down 7% today. That's the primary reason Nvidia's stock price is down 7% today. Now, to answer the question, do I view this as a buying opportunity? And I'll refer back to my recommendation of Nvidia stock. I've had Nvidia stock on my list of top stocks to buy all year long. And this news increases the risks for Nvidia stock, but you're also getting a 7% discount now. So the risks increased, but the price also decreased by 7%, which in my opinion is justified. The stock price should decrease in the event of increased tension between the US, China, and Taiwan, because that's the biggest risk Nvidia faces right now. Competition was previously one of its biggest risks, but they've proven that they've dominated competition so robustly that competition is now maybe second or third place for Nvidia in terms of its risks. And so this risk being the highest magnitude, right, in the worst case scenario, this risk could really devastate Nvidia for a time, because as we mentioned earlier, they are diversifying away from Taiwan-based manufacturers and outsourcing to manufacturers that have a presence in the United States and elsewhere. But for a time, it will really hinder its supply chain in the event of some difficulties, increasing tensions in the region. Still, I don't think this news was enough or is enough for me to downgrade Nvidia stock. I still think it's a top stock to buy, and I still think the value is really good for investors. Now, the 7% discount doesn't make me feel more excited about Nvidia stock, because like I mentioned, the 7% discount is coming at the expense of rising risks. So it's about neutral in terms of the value you were getting on Monday, where these risks were not yet as elevated, and the value you're getting today with the stock price down 7%, but now the risks are higher. Because when you're thinking about investments, when I'm thinking about investments, I'm always thinking about risk versus reward. So if my risks are higher, I need to have a much higher reward to compensate. And so I'm getting a lower price, but I'm also taking higher risk. So overall, yes, I do think Nvidia stock is still a buy, and I do think this is a buying opportunity, but not more than I thought it was last week. Before I let you go, let me tell you about the greatest deal on YouTube. With just a click of a button, you can get free financial analysis from a professor with decades of investing experience. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.